There we go, being live streamed. Hi, everybody. So, welcome to SongNet. My name is Jimmy, and we've got a very, very special guest today. Bobby Owsinski is one of the most prolific authors in the music industry. He's written some incredible books. A lot of them are being used as textbooks in various places all over the country, and he's become a fairly well-known authority on a lot of things. So, I just want to go ahead and let him introduce himself and explain what he does, how he's doing it, and then we'll get into listing some stuff here. So, Bobby, take it away. How's it going, man?
Thanks, Jimmy. Thanks for having me. Yeah, what do I do? Well, what I used to do is I was a guitar player for a lot of my life, and then I decided that I didn't want to be in the road anymore. Pretty common. Then went to the studio as an engineer, as a producer, then a mixer, and along the way, I started to write some magazine articles, which then turned out to be books. And people like the way I write books, so that's the good thing. They were adopted. 1999 is my first one, Mixing Engineer's Handbook, and it was immediately adopted into a lot of college courses and since more around the world. So I do that. I've written 27 and 28 books, although 24 of them are in the music business. And I also do online courses and workshops, things like that. So, it's a busy life. Who would have thought?
Yeah, you also have some free podcasts and stuff out there too. You can mention that. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. So I always forget about my blogs and podcasts. There's over 5,000 posts on the blogs. So there's two of them. Bobby Owsinski blog, that's music production, and Music 3.0.com, and that's all about the music industry. As far as my podcast, I think we just dropped 389, 489 the other day. So that's 489. I've been doing it for almost 10 years now. And we try to have movers and shakers in the music business on, but not only music tech, a lot of music tech. I find it interesting that someone will be on my podcast and then a year later I see them all over Billboard as they sold their company, the company got a big investment or something like that. So it's always kind of fun to be on the cutting edge of that. But a lot of engineers, producers, musicians, lots of great musicians have been on. So that's BobbyOInnerCircle.com.
Yeah, and you did a thing about AI recently too, right? Which one is that on?
Yeah, I did an AI music production workshop, a 3-day workshop recently. And that's kind of interesting because at the beginning of the year, I started to get into it and I found out that I really liked it. So I took courses from MIT, from deep learning, computer science, from IBM, from Meta Academy, and I'm trying to get my arms around it. And then I tried out about 120 music AIs in all sorts of different capacities. And as a result, like I say, I think I have a pretty good handle on what's available and how it all works. So I did a 3-day workshop recently, and we'll probably be repeating that pretty soon, as a matter of fact, because it went over really well.
Yeah, that's something that all of us have to start looking at because I know a lot of people are scared of it, but at the same time, it's something that can be very beneficial for a lot of us too. So I'm excited.
Yeah, it's actually just another tool for musicians. It'll help us in a lot of different ways. It's especially good for promotion, and that's where a lot of people really fall down. They don't know what to do, how to do it, and it's exceptionally good at that. But it's also good at getting new ideas. So different chord changes that you never would have thought of, melodies, things like sounds. There's lots of AIs that just deal with new sounds. So that's not going to take anybody's job, although there are some text to music AIs that may threaten one end of the business, which is production music, background music behind commercials and films and television, not the high end ones, but the low end ones. and it does that exceptionally well. But I can't say it's exceptionally good at anything else. It's a good tool.
All right. And people can find all of your books and everything else at bobbyowsinski.com.
That's right.
Okay, so make sure you check that out. Okay, Steve, how many songs we have to listen to today?
Well, first, do we have any questions? You brought up a lot of really fascinating, stuff right there, and I mean, I certainly have a few questions. I think we
We'll
only
have
have
a few
about
questions first, then. Go ahead.
we have about 6 or 8 songs, I think it is, so we got
Oh,
plenty of
yeah, no
time.
problem then. Go ahead and ask some
Um,
questions.
but a long time ago, I remember I was either at a seminar given by Kurzweil or I went to one of his openings for one of his movies, Terminal Man, I think it was, or something like that. And Ray Kurzweil, of course, who's probably very well known for in music circles as well as in the Singularities. And there, when he was like a teenager, he wrote like computer programs to try to write music. And his comment on that was, yeah, it kind of sounded like a student of Mozart. And it's, his attitude was sort of like, yeah, I don't want to bother with that anymore because his father was a conductor and a composer, and so apparently, I guess he didn't want to tread there. But I'd be curious as to your comment, like you said on the AI stuff. In what way is it a good tool that you've experienced? I'm curious.
Well, like I was saying, it's really good. There are certain ones that are really good at suggesting different chord patterns and
Okay.
again, things that you wouldn't expect. So I always thought that was good because let's face it, we all get into a rut where we're just using the same chords over and over and over, and this will take you out of that. And the same thing with melody, lyrics, for instance. It can be really good at helping you with lyrics. Now, it could write a song, and it does, but it's usually kind of middling. It's not Bernie Taupin at all. But all you need is an idea, and you look at it and you go, oh yeah, that's a better word that explains what I'm trying to do, or a better phrase. So that's what it's exceptional at. When it comes to just the audio side of things, for instance, in mixing, there's some good AI tools that make things go really fast. So for instance, if you're not well versed in compression, all you have to do on some of these is hit a profile button saying, okay, this is a bass guitar, and then hit learn, play it for 8 seconds, figures it out for you. And it is it going to beat an A-list engineer? No, but it does a pretty good job, especially if you don't know so much what you're doing or you want to go really fast. So that's just some of the ideas that you can have is mastering. There's some excellent AI mastering tools out there, and that's something that everybody kind of has a problem with. In that, if you try to do it yourself, what ends up happening is you usually make it worse instead of better. And these AI tools are much, much better than again, if you're inexperienced trying to do it. That's just some of the
Yeah.
things.
Fascinating. Wow.
Yeah, so again, there are some AIs, especially if you're trying to generate music. There's a lot of them that will just do a lot of crap. On the other hand, there are some that you go, wow. You ask it for an orchestral score, and it will come out with something you go, oof, who would have expected? Now there are limitations, and the limitations is what everybody kind of overlooks. So a pro listens to the stuff right away and they can figure it out. They say, okay, well, this is how we can beat it, or this is how it can help us. A beginner or a non-musician will be very impressed, which is what happens, and that's what we see in the news all the time.
We had a
There's also
question. Do you have a favorite AI tool?
lots of them. Probably ChatGPT, which everybody knows about, but that's so versatile. It will do so much. It will suggest chords if you know how to ask it. It will do things like, well, I'm writing a book and it's acting as an editor for me. So I put my chapter in, and I say, fix all the grammar, fix all the spelling mistakes, and make some suggestions to make things clearer. And it will come up with some things. I'll go, yeah, boy, that does it. It's better. Not everything, but some of it. So that's a favorite. In the music end, uh, there's there's a number of them. The the Smart uh, series from Sonable. There's a smart EQ, there's a smart reverb, there's a smart compressor, there's a smart limiter, and they all work pretty well. It's Sonable. And Focusrite is same thing. So there's a few. Isotope has been doing this longer than anybody else, and they just come out with Ozone 11 yesterday and Nectar 4, and there's AI through all of that. They don't broadcast it so much, but there's a lot of it. So there's lots. One of the coolest things in Nectar 4 that I saw is if you want background vocals, it will automatically do background vocals for you, but with different voices. So that's a very cool trick.
Wow.
Lots of great stuff.
What is the expense involved in all of these? Like, let's say you just mentioned a dozen different programs. I mean, how much are they? Are they free? Are they trial runs? Or, you know?
Cheaper than you might expect, less expensive, I should say, than you might expect. ChatGPT is free unless you do the latest version, ChatGPT 4. It's $20 a month. If you don't use it that often, you don't need updated plugins and things like that. Doesn't really matter. Most of the plugins, the audio plugins, they'll go from $29 to $199. Not all that expensive. Most of them, around the $100 mark. When it comes to all the other AIs, across the board, it's subscription. So there'll be three tiers. There'll be a free tier, and a free tier will allow you to generate something, but usually for your own use, and you can't use it for anything else. Then there's a middle tier, and that could be anywhere from $2.99 to $9.99. And what that will allow you to do is generate something. Let's say it's a song, generate something, and then you actually are able to use it, post it on YouTube, post it on social, things like that. And they give you the license to do that. And you're able to monetize it, which you can't do on the free tier. Then when you get to the premium tier, then they'll actually transfer a copyright to you. So it's not a license, it's a copyright. And then you also get the highest resolution of audio file, which is CD quality, 44:116. But it's that's kind of common. For videos, for instance, Rotor Video is wonderful for doing music videos. You don't even have to think about it. You upload your song, and you pick a couple templates, and it figures it out. And the timing's perfect, and it's really great. And that works on a credit system where you buy a number of credits, and usually it takes like 9 credits, roughly $10 per song. So, it's reasonable.
So if you wanted to make a video, then, and you had a song, and you said, I want this background and this going on behind it and put myself in the middle of it, is that easy to do? Not that hard to, what level of complexity is something like that?
It's fairly easy to do. If you have clips of yourself that you want to include, you upload them. If you have stills, for instance, you upload them. Or no, not. You just pick the template, and usually there's 5 different types of scenes, or even more, and you pick them, and then it randomly cuts between them. So it does it very quickly and very easily, and it can go anywhere from really wild and out there to it looks like somebody just shot it in your backyard.
Yeah. Which program was that? This video stuff?
Rotorvideo.com.
Okay.
But there's other ones. There's Caliber is a good one too, with the K. Caliber.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there's one that I like that I just can't think of the name of off the top of my head. Anyway, there's lots of them. Now, again, some are better than others. Some fit you better than others. It's just like anything else. Like some guitars work for you and others don't, and it's the same thing with AIs.
I feel like we're entering a paradigm shift of major proportions. I mean, we all knew that, of course, but when you talk about actually using it and the video part, I mean, videos anywhere from 5 grand to hundreds of grand, and to do that, even have access to doing something like that for a small amount is an extraordinary thing. So this is really something.
It's even better because you can actually output different resolutions and different sizes. So you can say, I want a full-on music video that's 3.5 minutes, and then give me a 30-second clip, especially for TikTok, or even 15 seconds for TikTok. Give me 30 seconds for Reels, and they're different sizes, so it will spit it out at different sizes, and all you have to do is upload it. So it's a new world, but it again, I look at it as, oh, here's some tools that make life
Yeah.
easier.
No, absolutely, absolutely. But it's a new tool set to know.
Yeah,
That's what's it takes the time, and
yeah.
obviously you've put an enormous amount of time into this. Yeah, that's what's fascinating.
Yeah, but I have to say, selfishly, it's something that I found out I really liked.
Yeah,
So it's not hard to put lots of time into something that that you're having fun with. If I wasn't having fun, it would have been torture.
yeah,
But no, I really enjoy it.
yeah. Anybody else have questions?
Yeah, especially when it comes to AI, there's a lot of stuff. Copyright is a big deal.
I was
And
going to add, that was going to be my next question
yeah.
is I know that's a work in progress. The legal community, I'm sure, has not figured all this out yet. Um, but you even mentioned that the programmers themselves have anticipated that. And if you buy, you said that like the pro or the upper tier, they will give you the copyright on it.
Yes,
Or
but
you've already paid for it, or do they get a cut or
well, no, no. But there's some discussion about whether it's theirs to give in the
true?
first place.
Yes.
So there's a lot of gray areas in this that slowly but surely are being taken care of. One that recently happened that really clarified things was the Copyright Office came out with a guidance that said anything that is 100% AI generated cannot be copywritten because a human isn't involved. Now, if a human is involved, you can copyright it. It doesn't say how much the human can be involved, but the human can. The other thing that happened then, it snowballed. The Grammys then said, if it's 100% AI generated, no, you know, you're not eligible. Then we started to see Spotify saying, okay, we're not going to take anything that's 100% AI generated anymore. And we're taking down what's there that we can figure out it's AI generated. And then TuneCore said, don't bother sending us anything that's 100% AI generated because we won't touch it. And this is kind of snowballing. Now, again, it doesn't apply to most people because what they'll do is they'll use it as ideas for something else they're doing. So there's a lot of themselves into it. So it doesn't really apply. It applies more to the punters who have no musical skill. They're just going to like Loudly or Boomy or one of those and saying, make me something that's like Drake. Of course, it doesn't come out sounding like Drake, but then they say, oh, well, okay, it sounds good enough. Let me post it to Apple Music or whatever. We can go
Yeah.
down the rabbit hole. As a matter of fact, the other day I had an hour and a half discussion with three of the top copyright attorneys and in the world, and it was hard to get agreement on things.
I believe it. I believe
Yeah.
it. There was a ruling just the other day on a piece of artwork that some of the, if it's in the style of a certain artist, and as I recall, that was shot down. They said the original artist, because there was such an insignificant part of that original artist in the final product, that they wouldn't have any copyright to it. Is that right? Is that the same thing you read?
Yeah, but here's what happens. A lot of it has to do with the training material. So,
Right.
for instance, if you took the whole Elton John catalog and trained an AI, and then someone said make it in the style of Elton, and it comes out exactly like Elton, well, then he would have a claim
Yes.
saying that this isn't going to work. But other people are looking at it like another revenue opportunity. So what happened is management turned around to the AI platform and say, you wanted this training material? No problem. Pay us $50 million or X amount, whatever it might be. And that's more or less what's going to happen in the future, where people will say, hey, if you want to use it, okay, but pay me for it.
Yeah, there are a few other questions. Let's see. Please pipe
I
in
got a
if
question.
you raise your hand. Yes, go ahead.
It's really not a question, it's a statement that SAG-AFTRA and the Writers Guild are on strike right now, as everybody knows. And at the number one issue that they can't come to terms on is the use of artificial intelligence. Obviously, production wants to use it to take an actor's image and then recreate that actor moving around and speaking and doing all that stuff. And they're adamant about not paying them for this work, or paying them very little. And the Writers Guild, that's pretty obvious. Production can take a bunch of scripts they like, dump it into an AI software to learn it, and then generate their own scripts.
It's
So,
actually going
yes.
another direction on that, where what really upset them was they would go to AI and say, write a script like this. And then they would turn around and go to a writer and say, okay, make this better. Now, what would happen is if a writer came up with it, they would get paid this much. And if they did a rewrite, they'd only get paid this much. And they might not get any residuals. So that's the whole crux of the matter there.
And the irony is that the writers want to use it as a tool to help them in their writing. They just don't want production doing it for them,
Yeah.
taking away their jobs. So I think that is going to be dragging on for months and months. I don't think there's going to be any clear end in sight.
Well, there's some thought that what perhaps what the actors are fearing may not actually happen the way they think. So what they're afraid of is, for instance, all the extras would, once they came and did their thing, then they would be AI generated from there on. The only problem is people notice these things, and they can tell between what's real and what isn't. So if you're doing something that was superhero oriented, maybe, and it's cartoonish, then you can get by with it. Otherwise, you might not, and people will get tired of that stuff because you can tell there is a difference. I'll give you an example. Here's the best way to tell if something is AI generated. Look at the hands. AI is really good at doing everything else, but not hands. So what'll happen is you'll find, there'll be claws, or there'll be, without fingers, or there'll be something like this. So that's one way to really tell.
I worked as an extra on a movie about a year ago. And it's a big blockbuster coming out. It's called Rebel Moon, coming out in December. And they took all the extras, or all the background actors, and told them, we want you to go get scanned. And so
Wow.
in this particular case, there was a tremendous amount of work available. So if you said no, I mean, you could say no, but then you had to risk the chance they wouldn't call you back. So most people did it, including me. But I went in, they had a special building built. Well, actually, it was on a movie ranch, so the building was already there, but it was dedicated for scanning. And they had this cage kind of device, like looked like monkey bars, that probably had, I don't know, 20 cameras in there. And then you'd get inside it, and then they give you directions on look like you're running this way, now look like you're running the other way. Now look like you're cheering, and now look like you're sad or screaming, and all these facial expressions. And then in the current contract negotiation that's going on now, they announced we want to pay extras for 1/2 day to go in and get scanned and use their image exclusively for eternity, I guess, is the argument. And
Yeah, we can go down a rabbit hole in this because there's actually several things here. One is copyright, and the other is NIL, name, image, likeness. And NIL is big in sports and over the last few years, but it's also now a big thing when it comes to entertainment as well. So NIL is worth a lot of money, even if they're not willing to pay it.
And then the same token, Tom Hanks just cut a deal, his own deal, for to use him to do artificial intelligence on him. So they made a movie with Tom Hanks looking like he's 30 years old or something. But of course, he cut his own deal. And I'm sure he cut that deal as if he was making his own movie. And, 6 figures, 7 or 8 figures, well, 7 figures,
Yeah.
But background actors, they wanted to pay him like a couple $100. Yeah. So that's what they're arguing about, and that's why there's a standstill in the negotiations. It's not because somebody wants, a little raise. AI is at the top of the list.
Yeah, sure.
I see a couple of comments on the chat side. Yeah. One was about knowing how things were done in AI. You had mentioned the hands. Also, I know that there are certain fingerprints and stuff that you can find in a digital file to determine what really is AI created and what's not. Then how do you make an analog or digital recording sound analog? That's a mastering thing. I know we were talking about that at lunch today, in fact. And then Dave, you have your hand up. Why don't you go ahead and ask your question?
Thanks, Jimmy. So Bobby, I'm kind of wanting to be self-produced artist. I'm learning, Logic. I'm learning mixing. I'm learning producing. I'm new to all of that. I'm new to you. So, I'm learning about you tonight. So I'm looking at your website. So of your materials, where should I start? I'm looking at your website, free mixing crash course. Is there something better I should start with of your materials?
Well, that's a good place. If your mixing skills are lacking, you don't feel like you're at the level you want to be, that will get your feet wet. And then my mixing primer course is a good place to start. And then a little bit later in the year, we roll out Mixing Accelerator. Mixing Accelerator is a 12-module course where what happens is we go from arrangement, because that's a big part of mixing, and we take it through production, through mixing, and all the way through mastering and all the steps in between. And that's a pretty extensive program, but that's going to be happening later in the year again. We only do it twice a year.
Okay, and is that something that is you watch videos? Is there feedback from you or mentors, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's a combination, actually. There's the online material, which is all videos and downloads, PDF downloads and stuff. And then there's also training, which, for every module, there's training with me. And there's assignments. So it's like, I want you to do this, and then send me the link, and I'll give you my feedback. So that happens all the way through. Then at the end, what we do is we go to Oasis Mastering, to Gene Grimaldi, He doesn't master your track, but he gives you feedback the same way he would on any mixer. So what a mixer is going to do usually is send a track, a rough mix, before they really get into it, and say, is this okay? Do you spot any problems? And that's the feedback he gives you. So there's a lot involved.
And for ear training, do you recommend sites like Sound Gym? I mean, do you recommend that we would get involved in that just to try to identify frequencies a little bit better?
It can't hurt, that's for sure. A lot of that is more sound reinforcement oriented, in the fact that you have to identify feedback really quickly. So that's where a lot of that comes from. There was something I saw that was really good, and I wish I could think of the name of it, out of the UK. And what they actually had was compression. So they give you examples and say, okay, can you tell what kind of compression is this? And what is the compression on? Can you tell what kind? And then it would be the same thing with like ambience, for instance. Okay, what kind of ambience is this? And it seemed to me like a really good direction to go.
Okay. And then in your online courses, I mean, obviously you probably make it general for every DAW, but do you demo in a certain DAW?
Yes, Pro Tools, although we're going to be adding Logic pretty soon, and maybe another one.
Okay.
But yeah, Pro Tools. But I have to say, all this, everything I show you comes from the analog world, because I'm an analog guy when it comes down to it, and I learned on analog, and all of the things that we've learned are easily transferable to the digital domain. Almost everything transfers. So a lot of the stuff is, I don't want to say generic, it's transportable to different DAWs, or even in console if you want.
Okay, because that was another question I was thinking, because I remember in the days of tape, you would want to get your input signal to saturate the tape without clipping. But now I'm hearing, record at like, negative 15 or negative 10 dB. So, I don't know. So, I mean, is there a difference in how you get gain in digitally versus the analog world?
Well, the gain staging is definitely important. It's more important than anybody thought it would be in the beginning. And that was one of the reasons why digital didn't sound so good in the beginning, because everybody thought, well, I can just hit this as hard as possible and I don't have to worry. And what ended up happening was there was no headroom throughout the system. So the mixes started to sound small. And once we figured out, wait a second, we have to approach this exactly the same way as we did analog, then all of a sudden, the acceptance of the workstation suddenly came about, because we all thought, oh, okay, now this sounds good. Now we can make this work. No. Then we had plugins that actually started to sound good, and then that all helped. But those same techniques still apply. I always recommend that if you're going to record between, aim for -10 with peaks at -6, and that's plenty.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And that's actually a good place to start getting back into some of the listening, because now we can identify and analyze some of that stuff. So if you're set to listen to some stuff, Bobby, we'll go for it.
Yeah.
All right. Steve, what's up first?
Okay, so we have 6 different songs. The first one is Dave Clausen, and this is called The Roll of the Die. Give me a moment. What we do here, Bobby, is we share the screen. I pull up the lyrics. Hopefully you can see them pretty easily, and then we'll play the song. Give me a moment.
And then, of course, you can cut it off, or just tell us whatever. We'll be watching the sidelines here.
Okay.
I prepare the soil dig out the weeds, just the right amount of sun for the newly planted seeds, shelter and nurture, water each and every day. But then a flood came in, washed it all away. Oh, the best made plans can go well or right. Some days it feels like the roll of a die. Bone-dry desert air, scorching heat throughout the day. On a red rock mountain ledge, a lone tree shows the way against all
Hey,
odds.
let's stop here.
Horizontal to
Okay.
Okay, so there's a number of things I noticed right off. The first thing is you've kind of fallen into a trap, and it's not your fault because you haven't been subjected to a really good producer that will beat you up over parts. So anybody that's made records knows that you don't settle for anything that sounds good. You only want the best performances. So that means that everything has to be absolutely right, absolutely on time. And there's lots of places where that's not happening, where there's flams. So right off, that kind of eliminates this as ever being a master, because you've kind of settled for the tracks, and it's like good enough. Okay, that sounds good. Hey, everybody does it. And it's only after you've been beaten up by somebody that you realize it. And I'll give you the best example of this that happened to me. So when I first came to LA, my band was lucky enough to work with Roger Nichols. Roger Nichols, of course, Steely Dan, he recorded all that stuff, right? So we go in the studio and we're self-produced, and Roger's recording. And we did the rock and roll thing, just kind of like what you probably did. Oh, yeah, that sounds good. Let's move on. And Roger stopped us and he said, "How can you let that go?" And it was like a slap in the face. And it was like, oh, yeah, okay, it can be better. Let's go back and get it better. And from that point on, that taught me a lot. That gave me an edge that I used the rest of my career, where it was like, oh, okay, now I know I have to get this right. So the point is here, there's a lot of stuff that you left go by that you just can't. The second thing is the vocal. That's probably you singing. I would do the same thing. I'd sing the same thing. But the big problem here is, again, a producer would get the best out of you, because it's really easy to settle if you're doing it yourself and self-producing. So I would do one of two things. I would either get somebody to help me, or I would get somebody that's a pro to sing it. It's hard to do that, but it would sound better. So if you're trying to sell this, you want the best possible presentation. The third thing is development of the song. Listen to any song that's a hit. Doesn't matter what it is. The same thing always happens. There's a big intro, let's say. The vocal comes in, it gets smaller. Pre-chorus comes in, it gets a little bigger. Chorus comes in, it gets big. Come back to the second verse, it's a little smaller, but now there's some new things that are popping in. There's background vocals, or there's lines that are filling in, or there's a keyboard pad. Every section, we're adding parts and we're subtracting parts. And that makes a huge difference, because that keeps our attention. but I could tell just where this is going, that that's not what you thought about. And I get it. There's, again, that's, unless you've had this experience, you probably wouldn't. But that's one of the big things that makes hit songs, is there's always something new happening and it's not even every section. Sometimes it's every 4 bars. There's something new. There's a background vocal that pops in. There's another line that pops in. Always something going on. So you have to think that way. You have to think arrangement wise. How do I help this song develop? Where is the peak? Usually it's a bridge, sometimes an outro, but you have to think that way. So those 3 things, I hate to be so blunt, but again, better you hear it and fix it than keep going and not fix it.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Next we have Eliza Morrison. This is called One More Ride. Let's see, for the road.
And watch your chat too, Steve, because the level was a little bit low on Dave's.
Yeah, I turned the volume up on this a little bit. Tell me if it's about right or not, or give me a point up or a point down if it's about right or it needs to go up or down, okay?
It was the 8th of September. I'm in my 5.0 souped up with 4 on the floor. That's when I see her. She was a 5-star beauty queen, American dream, and some more. She turned around the corner. I felt my heartbeat speed up, pedal to the metal, explode. She flashed me a smile now, threw a thumb up in the air for a ride out of my zip code. Ooh, it was a magical night. Ooh, it was a ride of my life. Ooh, why did I ever let her go? Oh, give me one more drive together. You got what I needed and all of my speed. Let's slow it down and ride forever. Anywhere you wanna go. Back it up and turn 180. Head on the brakes and dial the toes down low. You're more than everything, baby. How about one more ride for the road? I should have slowed down. Wish I didn't. Hasselhoff show off, burn out every curve. I wanted to kiss her, but glancing at those long legs flying 90, I lost my nerve. She's a ghost now, disappeared in the wind down the road after rocking my world. But I'll always remember that sweet, special, sexy, magical, more than everything, girl.
Hey. All right. The big thing that jumps out to me is the balance is way off. Vocals way in the front. And you can't, the rhythm section is kind of there, but there's no power. And the reason why is the rhythm section carries the power, the drums and the bass. So I suspect what happened here is something that's typical. You put your mix together, then you put the vocal in last. And the problem with that is it's either always too high or too low in level. this case is too high. So how do you get around that? Well, what you're going to do is you're going to start with the bass and the drums. Then you put the vocal in immediately and build the rest around that. And you'll find that the vocal will always sit in the right place. So that's one thing. The other thing is there's no real girth in the song. Girth meaning doesn't sound like there's much below 100 hertz in this case. Don't know why. It could be the way you recorded it, especially on the drums. There's nothing in a kick drum. So it would be even harder to do what I just said because you don't have, it doesn't sound really big. You want it to sound really big. So what do? Well, get a couple of your favorite records and listen and use that as a reference and say, I love the drums on this. How do I make my drums sound like that or as close as I can? It's the best thing you can do to try to get it there. Here's something. There's distortion as well. So there's somewhere you're overloading. Could be maybe you compressed it a lot at the end or limited it a lot. Could be that. Again, we have the problem with development. So I love the background vocals. Background vocals are excellent. But maybe they're in too early. They're right in the first verse, right in the beginning. Maybe it would have worked better just in the second verse where how the first and second verses are different. As the other thing, as a result of this, the second verse seemed really long to me. Nothing different happening. So again, what gives me the impetus to listen longer because it's the same thing over and over. One of the things you could have done is maybe cut it in half. No rule that says you can't. So, there's that. Let's see what else. At the end of in the middle of the first verse, and also the second verse, things kind of drop out. And it was kind of clumsy the first time. The second time sounded better. That's okay. That's a good idea. But it has to be very definitive. So if it's going to drop out, everything got to drop, and they got to drop at the same time, come back in at the same time. So it's like we're doing this intentionally. And the way it is now, at first I thought, well, that's a mistake. What happened? And then I realized when you did it the second time, oh, no, it's not. It was an execution thing. So that's something to look at. In all of these, it's the same thing. When you're playing with real instruments, there are things that you have to worry about. One is attacks and releases, which everybody kind of overlooks. So yeah, everybody can hit at the same time, but do you come off at the same place? That's what really makes things sound tight. So it's the release, not so much the attack. So that's something to keep in mind as well. So I hope that helps you a little bit.
Oh my gosh, it's so amazing. Thank you so much.
Cool.
Good. We could just do that, rattle that off, just hear it, and then just talk like that. So I do appreciate you listening. Thank you.
Cool. Glad I could help a little.
All right. Next up, we have Ed Lackey. This is called Broken Hearts. And let me see the share.
She's a girl collecting broken hearts. Everything she does will tear you apart. She's got a black book and keeping score. She's gonna add your heart, it's just one more. Add it up, broken hearts. Paper tears, just for starts. Add it up, broken hearts again. Like fishing, she lays the bait. A lucky strike, you can't wait. She'll reel you in and break your heart, and then she'll leave you standing in the dark. Add it up, broken hearts, paper tears just for starts. Add it up, broken hearts again. No one has survived this fate. You better run before it's too late. Don't look around, she gives no clue. She'll break your heart in two. Add it up, broken hearts, paper tears just for starts. Add it up, broken hearts again. She's a girl collecting broken hearts.
You're muted, Bobby.
Oh, thank you. With this one, I liked a lot about it. I liked the mix was pretty good. Especially the rhythm section, drums, bass, guitar sounded good. I wish there would have been more development. Same thing again. Give me something different in the chorus and in the second and third verses. Something keeps my attention. I think the biggest thing is the vocals. I hate to be Mr. Negative here. Please take this for what it's worth. If you're trying to sell this song, you need a better presentation. You need a better vocalist. It's better to hire somebody, get something really good, somebody that can deliver it, somebody that's what they do. And then whoever's listening to it will get a better idea of what's happening. Now, if you send this to a music supervisor, they're going to tell you the same thing. So better you hear it from me now before you go down that road. The other thing, well, not finished yet. The other thing is, I felt that the verse was kind of sing-songy. It maybe it could have been half as long and worked better. But the first 8 and second 8 bars are exactly the same in terms of the melody. Nothing changed. Would have been nice if something was different there, and then it would have kept my attention. But when it's the same for a long period of time, it's kind of like, okay, what else is going on? And there's nothing else that's happening to really grab my attention. So, again, this is where song development comes in, where, again, there's lots of songs that kind of do this, but they use production to keep you involved. So, just think of that. On my podcast, I've interviewed some great A-list songwriters. And one of the things I always ask them is about their demos. And what they always tell me is their demos sound like records, and they spent a lot of time making them sound that way. And then when someone finally covers their songs, a lot of times they just use the same ideas. Sounds the same as the demo. So it's not really a demo, it's a master that they're sending out, but they're taking the time to make it as good as possible. And that's what you have to remember. You're up against people that are doing that. So you have to up your game on this.
Thank you again for all the criticism. Sounds good.
All right. Next up, we have Scott Gerber. This is called The Lion and the Lamb.
God, I hate to be so negative here. Please
We're all used to it. We all have thick skins here.
Okay.
No, this is good. There's throwaway criticism and there's constructive criticism, and this is all constructive. All constructive. Yeah.
She left the farm for the jungle, found a familiar den, cautiously guarded her sweet world, away from the claws of men. He can be loud and scary, but mostly he is subdued. Animals rarely approach him. They know what his back can do. She keeps angels in her pocket. He carries demons from his past. They are both perfect and broken, the lion and the lamb. She liked to forage for berries. He would hunt for meat. She had to graze on conflict. He had blood on his teeth. She keeps angels in her pocket. He carries demons from his past. They are both perfect and broken, the lion and the lamb. His growl would terrify her. She was afraid that he'd bite. Some are more equal than others. She thought he had to. He thought he had to be right. She wants to be with her lion. He wants to be with his lamb. When love gets rough in the jungle, they work to get back to where love began. She keeps angels in her pocket. He carries demons from his past. They are both perfect and broken, the lion and the lamb. She keeps angels in her pocket. He carries demons from his past. They are both perfect and broken, the lion and the lamb. The lion and the lamb.
Wow, very cool. I wanted to hear that to the end. And the reason why was there was a lot of very cool chord twists that I didn't expect. And I thought, wow, I bet there's going to be something interesting at the end here. It wasn't what I expected, but it worked. Definitely worked. Bridge was great. Boy. Not what I would have expected. Uh, I have nothing to say except I enjoyed it.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
So I was the one that asked the question about how do you make your digital recordings not sound so digital? Because like the records that I listen to, but like the new song by Extreme called The Other Side of the Rainbow, and there's a big Blake Shelton song called Honeybee. When I play my song next to their song, there is a softness in the cymbals and the high end. There's a fatness in the low end that I don't know what knob I'm not turning, but it ain't sounding like that.
It's not you. They're recording with a big budget in a big studio. You put it through a Neve or an SSL or an API, and it's going to sound better. I mean, there's no question about it. It just will. With great microphones in a great room. So you're competing with something that costs, you're competing with the Rolls Royce. And that's not what you have.
No, I've got some decent microphones, but I don't have a Rolls Royce.
Yeah, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
You have one arm, you have both arms tied behind your back as compared to what they're doing. So the only thing you can do is get the best gear you can, especially preamps. Preamps mean a lot. Preamps, good mics. And that's the next thing is a really good room, but in lieu of that, you know, you can do a lot with a couple of really great mics and some really good preamps.
Yeah, I mean, I've got some Neve plug-in pre's.
Not the same.
Like
Not the same.
What's that?
It's not the same.
No, of course, but you know, I don't work at Sunset Sound anymore, so there you go.
Yeah. But that's what you're hearing. You're hearing $1 million sound, you know, literally $1 million sound. You're trying to compare yourself to that, and you don't have that.
Yeah. I asked the question about the analog thing, and one of the hosts said that some of that happens in mastering. Is there something that you can do in mastering other than adding like a Studer A800 plugin to the 2-track master to make it, to warm it up or anything?
Oh boy, we're going down a rabbit hole here, and this is a pet peeve of mine.
Sorry.
Now, understand, I grew up in the days of analog, starting in 8-track, and I can remember that the thing that we tried not to do was get tape saturation. To have it glorified today makes me crazy, because that was something that we tried to avoid. Why? Well, you get this great sounding mix and you're listening to the band on the floor and it's coming through the console. Then you record it and it goes on tape. And when you play it back, you go, why the sound change? Why is it so different? That's why everybody jumped on the bandwagon as soon as the Sony 3324s and 3348s come out, because it's like, oh, that's what I was hearing before. That's a lot closer. So this whole thing about tape saturation, it baffles me that, people think it's going to automatically make everything sound better. And no, it just sounds different. What you're hearing in mastering is a really good mastering engineer that is listening in a precision studio that can hear things that nobody else can, and they can hear 1/10 of a dB when they make a change. And sometimes that's all they have to do, but they know where to do it, and all of a sudden it sounds great. And I've watched mastering engineers. I've looked over their shoulders while they're doing it. I can walk to 2 major ones where I live, and I go there because they're my friends. And a lot of times I'll do that and I'll go, why does it sound better? You didn't do anything. Because they know what to do. So don't think that it's a plug-in. Don't think that it's anything that other than really good engineering skill and a great room. Because with the great room, you can't mix it if you can't hear it. With the great room, you can hear things that you can fix right away. So if you don't have that low end, it's because you're not hearing it.
Okay, fair enough. my friend wanted me to mention that anybody that lives in Redondo Beach, I've got a guitar store. It's called Harbor Music.
Okay.
Come on down and give you a deal on stuff. Thank
Okay.
you for your time, Bobby. Appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure, Scott.
There was a comment or a question from Eliza. What do you think of the Slate Digital VSX headphones?
Oh,
Models?
yeah. Interesting. Okay. I heard so much about them that I went out and bought a pair myself. And they're good. They work. They do what they're supposed to. I noticed something that really bugged me, but I understand in the latest version they've gotten rid of that. And what it is, I can hear the room. I can hear like some reverb in the room. It really bothers me because it sounds a little exaggerated. So in other words, if you're to play something and you stop it, it rings over a little bit and it bugs me. It doesn't bug anybody else apparently, but it does me. Now I heard that in the latest version of 4.0, they've actually gotten rid of that. So I have to go back and try it again. But yeah, they work. They work. They're good. Do they replace a great room? I don't think so, but if you don't have anything close to a great room, that's the next best thing.
Yeah, there was also a comment from Pat. Analog tape compression is a real subtle thing which you don't overload the tape to get.
Yeah.
Comment?
Well, I think you know how I feel about that. There's a time and place for saturation. Saturation, does have a place in this world. But tape saturation, I look at it as a product of the 80s, thinking, why? That's going to date me, but sorry. I was there, and as many of you were, you're there in the analog days, so hopefully you understand.
All right. Okay. Next up, we have just two more. Stephen Medeiros, and this is called Foundations.
Was a dream come true, little country home. Two boys were born into this world. Their house was built on solid ground. Love and faith was the foundation. Seemed like nothing could tear it down. But as they grew, a crack appeared. Mom and Dad had grown apart, turned their whole world upside down. And Daddy won't be walking through the door today. You know it broke those young boys' hearts, but time will heal, the crack will seal. When you're young and scared and life seems unfair, there is just one thing you need to know. Our love for you will never change. Foundation strong through every season. My boys are proud. Proud of the roots that fed their soul. Values were believing, and all the love that we would give. The foundation never came apart. My boys are proud. My boys are proud. as the branches of time spread apart, embracing all that life can give. Love and faith was their foundation. They found love in mended hearts.
Okay. Good backing track. Good mix. Vocal might be a little loud, but it's telling a story, so that's allowed. That's okay. I think I have. Let's come back to what I've been telling people before. If you're trying to sell this and you want somebody else to cover it, then it probably won't work with your voice, because they're not going to hear it. Hate to say it, but that's the way that works. Your voice is technically right on, but there's not a lot of emotion in it. I can't feel things. It's very sing-songy, as is the melody. It's the same for the most part, just repeats. There's a couple different things here, but again, development. It seems like everything is kind of in at the same time. Starts all the way through. That the acoustic guitar that's playing in the back, playing the riffs. It would have been nice if that would have actually been muted for a while and then come back. Maybe the second verse came back. It was hard for me to tell. Well, I shouldn't say that. Your pre-chorus sounds like a chorus. Your chorus sounds like a bridge. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's the way I listened to it. I thought, okay, that's the bridge. But what I would do, it depends on your goals. If you're just trying to tell a story and it's you, and you're the artist, and you feel good with it, then it works. Then it's good. If you're trying to sell this, then it doesn't. Then you're going to need another vocal. You need a better performance. Yeah, and a vocalist that does this all the time. I know that's hard to hear.
No, it's not. I'm with you. I'm with you. I agree 100%. This was for an artist project. This song has been released as a single, and it's going to be on a future album. So this, unlike a lot of songs that I write to pitch, this was for an artist project. So, and I was trying to tell the story. So, this is a 5-minute ballad, so it doesn't fit into the commercial sector there either. But I like your feedback on some differences in what we can do with the mix, and that'll be helpful for future projects for sure.
Cool. Okay.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Glad I can help.
There was a question, a gear question. What do you think about SonarWorks plugin for headphones to flatten the headphone frequency curve for mixing?
Well, there's people that just absolutely love it, and I'm not one of those. It works. It doesn't work to my taste, but that's only my taste. There's other people that really like it. I never could get it to work the way I wanted it to, which could be my taste. So there's lots of people that get great results. It's worth giving it a try and see if you get better results.
Okay. Last one. This is one of mine. This is called Something Better. And let me do the share screen. And
ask you if you're busy. Specific day, specific time. Ambiguous, you say maybe, but you don't say why. Don't know what's going through that mind of yours. All those faces swimming inside, searching for your answer or your reasons why, and the reasons why. And at the last minute, sometimes with no word, you cancel on me, and you don't say why, and you don't say why. Yeah, you're just keeping me around. Yeah, you're just keeping me around. You got me waiting for so long, till something better comes along. Was it for the dinners, expensive restaurants, a life that you'd never seen? Sugar daddy can't go wrong. Sugar daddy can't go wrong. And it's always an early morning after the check's been paid. Doesn't seem that late to me. It's another man getting laid. Yeah, it's another man getting laid. Yeah, you're just keeping me around. Yeah, you're just keeping me around. You got me waiting for so long, till something better comes along. Yeah, I can see through you now. All those games you like to play, using me for my money, with no side to your trade, with no side to your trade. And now it's my turn to tell you to get the hell out of here. No more free ride, honey. Your closing time is near. Your closing time is here. Yeah, you're just keeping me around. Yeah, you're just keeping me around. You got me waiting for so long, till something better comes along. Yeah, you're just keeping me around. Yeah, you're just
I like this a lot. Can't argue with the track. Well performed. Development is pretty good. It kept my attention. So that's a big thing. Kept my attention through the whole thing. I loved the chorus. I loved exactly what you did. If I have any problem at all, and if I really get kind of anal with it, it would be the lyrics. The lyrics are saying what you want them to say. I just kind of think that maybe there's a more elegant way to do it.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I can't tell you specifically, but this might actually be a good place for ChatGPT or just one of the lyric generators, where with ChatGPT, what you could do is put your lyrics in and ask it if it could come up with a better way to say it. And specifically, what I mean is there are certain parts where there's certain lines where there's some extra syllables.
Okay.
And that's what I mean about the more elegant way to do it. I always think of what the Eagles do and how they can tell a story, but it always seems to work exactly right.
Gotcha.
But great track, and
Well, thank
liked
you. Thank you. There was a comment that came through. This is from Eliza. It says, as songwriters, how do we keep from getting discouraged? Since we aren't pro producers, engineers, musicians, and master era, sometimes singers, blah, blah, blah. To go to these expensive studios, hire all these people. Does anyone look beyond production demos? Any advice?
Well, it depends on what your goal is. I mean, if you want, is this for another artist to pick it up? Is this for maybe, sync? Is for sync, it's kind of different than what you do for another artist. I've always felt that, and what I've seen work the best was you find an artist that you want to write for, assuming that they're looking for outside material, and then you tailor it as close as you can to what they do, and then find a way to get in touch with them to do it, or management, really, a producer. I have a friend that what he did with one of his songs is he knew the artist was going in the studio, and he sat on the studio door and he waited and he waited and he waited until the artist came out, and then gave him a cassette. And that could turn a lot of people off, but he had a good way of doing it, and it kind of worked, and he got a song and a million-selling album out of it. So I'm not saying that'll work for you, but there's lots of ways to do the same thing. But yeah, it can be expensive.
Absolutely. Jimmy, that's all the songs we have.
Okay, and yeah, I kind of agree. There's a lot of different avenues to get your music out there, and one of the big things is that not only has the playing field leveled, but it's expanded substantially. When you look at the internet, everybody has access and everybody can do things. That's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing. But because of that, what used to be like a small fan base can be a huge fan base. I've personally suddenly expanded my fan base threefold just because of some of the things I've done on the internet. And it's really bizarre. I've got such a huge fan base in India, of all places. If I was to actually book a tour there, I could probably come back, if not just breaking even, actually generating some revenue. I don't know why or how, but I've got fans in India that just love my music. It's very strange.
Bollywood Jimmy.
Bollywood Jimmy, exactly.
Looking for Sugar Jimmy, right?
Yeah, looking for Sugar Jimmy. But yeah, there's so many different avenues. And then, a lot of you know that I do stuff at Kulak's Woodshed all the time. Kulak's is an incredible place. Leon, that's here right now, he's been doing some of the audio there, and he's heard some pretty amazing artists there. Just this past Monday, there were some phenomenal artists that just blew us all away, saying, what the heck are these guys doing at an open mic? Because they were that good. And a lot of them, of course, if they're not looking straight up for material, you can collaborate with them. There's one artist there that I have been collaborating with, and that should be pretty good. It'll be a whole lot of fun, I'm sure. One of the things that you can do is actually write with these people, and it's not that difficult. I've got several people that I write with, and it's exciting to see what comes up because when they perform my songs or the songs we've written together, it really changes everything. So I encourage you to look for other people to work with for that. I don't know if that helps. That help there, Eliza? Hope so.
Yeah, just one comment too. I was on Spotify for quite a while. I mean, I've got 30 songs there, and I had like 20 followers or something. And so, there's always these people on Instagram hitting you up. Oh, we need more music. We want to promote your music, and you don't really know where to draw the line between scam and real. So this one lady was kind of persistent. I said, "Oh, okay." So I gave her like, $20 or something. And I thought, she got, she delivered a lot more than I thought. Well, 6 weeks and about 600 bucks, I'd say, later, I had 25,000 listeners on Spotify just by using this one lady. She's from Bangladesh, of all places. She's like 20 years old. So these things do happen, and they're out there with your existing material. And you have to figure out who's who, and not a scammer, obviously, but you just start small and see what they do for you. It's interesting how that works.
Do you know where the listeners came from?
Oh yeah. The demographics. The first thing she did was the first round was mostly the U.S., UK, Brazil, and a few other European countries. Then I shifted her over to YouTube. All of a sudden it was Russia and Belarus and India and places like that. And I said, wait a minute. I said, what's the deal here? He said, oh, on YouTube it's really hard to do US. That means she didn't have the right connections pretty much. But on Spotify she did. And in fact, I looked at the top cities and they were like, LA was the top, Chicago and Houston. So I was kind of surprised at that. And I said, what about New York? I don't see any New York on here. Well, it's all who they know and who they can tap into, who has the mailing lists or whatever they do. It's a combination of mailing lists and social media and all that sort of thing. But that's why you probably have to try 3 or 4 different people to see what they can do and what geographies and that sort of thing. But what I was interested in was the sustain. I'd say, well, how many of them are going to stick around? So I hadn't done anything in like 6 weeks, and then it was still 5,000 people. So I thought that was a pretty good sustain. That's probably as good as, I was better probably than I expected.
So she used one of your tracks?
Yeah, these were all of my tracks that were on Spotify. Yeah.
How many tracks?
I'd say half a dozen different ones. And that was interesting too, to see which ones people listen to more. And then the other thing that's interesting is the secondary, like what haven't you given to them that all of a sudden pops up because people just tend to be listening more to you. And that's also interesting to see and sometimes it's pretty unexpected. As songwriters, we all know that we don't know we know it sounds good to us and what's personable to us, but we never know to an audience what they're going to pick up on. So, yeah.
Snowball effect.
Yeah.
Were they just 2 tracks?
No, they were like about 6 different tracks.
So you're still at 4877. You got one with 30,000 spins. We all want to know her name or what her email is.
Oh, sure. I'll
Yeah.
put her contact info in the chat. Yeah.
Yeah, I've used those services as well, and they definitely will spike your streaming. I went from 30 to something like 10,000 with one song, and that song went from 1,000 spins to 25,000 within a couple weeks. But this was a playlist service where they put them on particular playlists.
I got you.
So they do work, and there's some legit ones out there. So
Yeah.
that's cool. Congratulations. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Any
So
Bobby,
you're
you have
gonna
any
pop that?
commentary on that? I'm curious. Any horror stories you've heard or anything?
All mine have been pretty. I've only used a few, and I've checked them out. I know they're legit, and they work in varying degrees. I'd be afraid of a private individual, but I guess you can always test the water for $20, right?
Yeah, really.
So
Are you talking about streaming promotion?
yeah, I've
Yeah.
used music for Tizing and Sound Campaign. I've tried them. Um, the one I can't think of the one that's worked the best for me. They're all real, they're on all social media platforms, and they're about $100 a month. They'll run for 4 to 6 weeks or something like that.
And you went from 30 to
I went from 30 to 10, I think 10,000, and that was with one song. As followers, and our listeners, I should say, monthly listeners, and I went from 12 followers to 3,000 followers. So, it's still a very small presence, but like Steven said, they start other tracks. You can see your other tracks are starting to pick up because if they like they like the song, they'll oftentimes listen to another track. So it's just one way to try to build the fan base and try to get more people that can listen to your songs, which is what we all want at the end of the day.
Right, I was considering one of those promotion companies as well.
Yeah. I put
I
this
have
lady's
stuff on
name
there
in that.
that's pretty much not doing anything on the.
Yeah, I put this lady's name in the chat. That's her WhatsApp number. So, in case anybody's interested. But Bobby, have you had any good experience with any of those kind of online things?
I have a lot of experience. Yeah. Not so much lately, but back some years. And what I found was you can get a lot of followers, but they tend to be, again, in Bangladesh and places like that. The reason why it's cheap.
Yeah.
And it costs you more if you want the US and UK. So you can get them, but it's harder. The other thing is how long are they going to stay around? And you've seen,
Exactly. Yeah.
They don't really.
Well, it sure beats 20.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, there's no question.
Yeah.
I have a lot of experience with Facebook advertising. I do a lot of it every month, and that has worked gangbusters most of the time. Lately, not so much. Algorithm changes all the time.
Gotcha. Jimmy, any other comments?
No, I think that's about it. Oh, there was one note that I had about headphones because that's something that I've been dealing with for a long time. One of the things that I've been experimenting with is cranial coupling because everybody has a skull and everybody's skull, because it's a bone and it's a hard object, is going to have a certain amount of resonance. Therefore, no matter what headphone you use, they're all going to sound different on your head. I mean, that's just the nature of headphones. And so even though one person may say, yeah, these headphones rock and they're amazing and they're flat, and you put it on someone else's head and it probably won't be exactly the same. So for myself, I really have a hard time trusting headphones for anything. I've always got to have a room, and I've always got to have at least a second set of ears listening to make sure that they're hearing what I'm hearing. So that's pretty much it. Well, we got through everything pretty quick here tonight, and for some strange reason, Eliza's the only female artist here this time. Very unusual. Yeah. Okay. So I guess that's about it. Next thing that we're going to be doing is our in-person showcase at the Urban Homestead. For those of you that want to check that out again, just email Steve again at showcase@songnet.info, and we'll get that list started and make that happen. It's always been really good. And Bobby, thank you once again. Really appreciate what you've done, and for you coming here, and that's really great. And I now owe you lunch, so I'll definitely be seeing you next week. So
Bobby, great session. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Bobby.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
And
Enjoy
be sure
the
to check out
evening.
his books and stuff too, right? I mean, that's the whole thing here. It says, he came here, graciously for us. So thank you again, Bobby.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I guess that's about it. And we'll see you guys next time. Have a good one. Thanks, Steve.